Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Theo. Welcome to part 3 of the 2024 book reviews. If y'all are new here, this is an annual thing that I've been doing. How it works is that for every 3 to 4 books that I read, I'll sit down, give it a little rating, a little review. Sometimes my summaries are a little too long, but then when the video reaches anywhere from like 24 to 27 minutes, and then I'll start the next one. My goal this year is to read 50 books. We'll see if I make it. Last year, my original goal was 30, I want to say, and then it got changed to 50 and I did not meet it. So this year's goal is to actually meet 50. I also have a reading account. If you want to follow that, it's linked down below. I also have a Goodreads, and I want to have more friends on Goodreads. If you have a Goodreads, please have me on Goodreads. It's linked down below, as well as part 1 and part 2 of all the books that I've read in 2024. One of my goals for this year is to read more self-help, Christian psychology, all those kinds of books, because I feel like my genre is romance and mystery thriller. So I want to expand it a little bit, and I want to read stuff that's also like benefiting me in the long run. Not saying that all these books don't, because they've all stayed with me for a very long time. Also, if you haven't watched any of my other book reviews from this year, I will tell you right now, I have claimed Rebecca Yarros as my favorite author of 2024. Will that change? Most likely not. I have read almost every single book she has ever published. To get started, I read Full Measures by Rebecca Yarros, and I learned that this was the first book she ever published, and it had me crying from page 1. I rated this book a 9.5 out of 10. This book was so beautiful. I was gonna say something, but then I was like, no, I'll say it in the next book, because that's what I found out. This book starts with a family, and they get a knock on the door, and it's to let them know that their father, who is in the military, has passed away. He is a military doctor, so he's not actually involved in the wars, but he takes care of the soldiers who have been harmed. Then it kind of follows that story, as well as the protagonist. Her name is Ember, and she meets named Josh, who they knew each other in high school, and she had the fattest crush on him. He was like 2 or 3 years older than her, and she was just like gushing over him. He's now her little brother's hockey coach, and she's just very depressed. She's trying to help her mom deal with the depression as well. Then she has this long-term boyfriend who, spoiler alert, is not a good boyfriend, cheats on her. That ends, and the story just follows Josh and Ember's love story, and there's some secrets that I will not reveal that comes to light of how Josh already knew a lot of things and had me crying a lot. Yeah, it's a beautiful story about healing and PTSD. I'm not saying that like those topics like are beautiful things, but it shows how people cope with it. I don't know if sometimes I get so scared in the way I say things, because like in my head it makes sense, and then I'm like, it could completely come out the wrong way to other people. But yeah, it was a very, very beautiful book. Like I said, talks a lot about healing and PTSD and depression and family and things that really matter in life. The next book I read is Hallowed Ground by Rebecca Yarros. And let me explain something. This is the first book of the series. This is the 4th book of the series. This is a 5-book series. Book 2, 3, 5. But book 2, 3, 5 are spin-off character books from this book and this book. So, in my logic, I wanted to continue Josh and Ember's love story. So I was like, I'm gonna just read number 4, because 2, 3, and 5 are spin-off characters, so I'm not really missing much. Well, boy, was I wrong. There were so many new characters in this that I was like, huh? And I was like, yeah, I was able to put it together. But like at first I was like, wait, I have to go back and like go to the first chapter and like recap everything. But I rated this book a 10 out of 10. I cried so much reading this book. And this continues Josh and Ember's story. And he has now enlisted to be a pilot in the military, and she is now getting into her PhD schooling thing. It's like 2 years in the future, and something that I really, really loved about this book is that it shows the reality of a relationship in the real world, and not just like in high school or in college or like in the summer romance kind of thing, but like the actuality of it and how two different people that are so in love with each other and want that future together want two very different things, and they need to be able to communicate on how to come to an agreement and not sacrifice what they want to accomplish and who they want to be, as well as not sacrificing like their relationship and then being like, okay, we'll see you later, alligator, you know? There's definitely a lot of arguing in this book, as well as a lot of tears. Someone does pass away, not Josh, not Ember, but someone else does pass away. And that is a big topic of the conversation in the book. This book also very heavily focuses on PTSD and depression. And I can't really explain why without giving it away, but I really loved this book. Also, I am a person that if I don't understand something in a book, I will look it up so I can understand. And because this is so heavily army based, there were a lot of terms and like references that I didn't understand, and then I would Google it. Tears. Also, I have learned that Rebecca, this is also had me crying, she writes a lot of army and military love stories because her husband was in the army. But I definitely recommend this. Obviously, I would recommend reading in order, but I just have zero patience for anything. And when I set my mind to something, I will do it no matter what people tell me. The next book I read is The Housemaid's Secret. And this is the second book in the series. I read the first book earlier this year, and I rated this book a 9 out of 10. So this storyline does continue of the protagonist in the first book, Millie, and she's now living in New York City. Homeboy Enzo, they're not really in touch anymore, but she has stayed away from the life of helping women that are abused. She is now trying to live a normal life, going to college, has a very normal boyfriend, and she randomly gets a call that they need a housekeeper. And she's like, yeah, I need the money, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Turns out the husband, he's like, listen, the only rule in this house is that you're not allowed to go into the guest room and speak or see my wife. Well, homegirl finds blood and she goes to see if the wife is okay. Super abusive husband, like to the nth degree. So she's helping the wife escape. Part 2 threw me in such a loophole. I thought I knew who the crazy person was. I was like, I got it. Part 2, the revealing of like everything. Spoiler alert, someone gets killed. The person who killed him, the person that was killed, who was actually like the actuality of it. Just crazy. I remember reading it, I was like, wait, what? I was like, I definitely missed something. No, I didn't miss anything. And then part 3, like the last couple chapters, something else happens, and my mind was like, 2 more people end up dying. But from whom? Your mind is just like, wait, this person, huh? And then the epilogue, did I say that word? Reveals who the actual crazy person was throughout the entirety of the book. And I sat there stunned. So freaking good. The next book I read is Just for the Summer, and this is the first book that I read by Abby Jimenez, and this is also her latest release, and I rated this book a 7 out of 10. Unfortunately, I do have to say that I think this book was extremely overhyped. I fell into the trap, no, not into the trap, but like everyone I like follow and kept seeing on Goodreads how a fabulous book it was and all this stuff, and I felt like I was reading a teenage book. The gist of it starts with this guy posting on Reddit that every time he breaks up a relationship, it feels like the person he breaks up with, the next person they date, is their forever person. And he's like, I have some curse, and then some girl responds to it because she's a traveling nurse, saying that the same thing happens to her. So then her and her friend have plans to go to Hawaii as their next like location because they're both traveling nurses. And she's like, no, we have to go to them. Like, we need to go relocate to where he is. So she did that, even though they'd only spoken a few messages back and forth. It felt very quickly like they just rushed and they were in love and all these different things and what are we gonna do with our jobs and all this. And then she dealt with a lot of like childhood trauma from her parents, and then her mom ended up like finding her and moving next door to her, and her mom has a lot of issues. I don't know, it felt very like childlike, the way that everything was kind of explained, and even like the dialogue, it seemed a little too young for my taste. The next book I read is The Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune, and I rated this book a 7 out of 10. I was so excited for this book because I loved Every Summer After. Meet Me at the Lake was also great, but I was really looking forward to this one. And again, another letdown. I don't know. I thought that there could have been so much more, and I think that all her books are very much second chance romances. So maybe Carly's just running out of ideas. I don't know. But this book starts with two best friends. One of them goes to this island and she's waiting for her best friend to arrive, and her best friend gave her like a list of rules, and one of them was like, you can't fall in love with my brother. Well, she had never met her brother before, so it turns out they have a one-night stand. Then they're madly in love with each other, but again, there's no explanation on how they fell in love. But it goes back and forth, like past and present, and it's 5 years in the future, and her best friend is getting married, but she's still so madly in love with her brother, and so is he. So they're trying to like, and then the best friend has this huge secret that like the whole entire book you're like, oh my gosh, like what is going on? Like, does she not want to get married? Like, what is going on? It was the biggest letdown of a secret of my whole entire life. It frustrates me a lot when there is a love story but you don't get that information, so you're like, oh, the characters are so madly in love, but why? Also frustrates me when it's a rushed love story. Like, they text once, they see each other once, and then they can't stop thinking about them for the rest of their lives. I don't, maybe just because I've never experienced that I'm like, Zah. This was also the 35th book I read of 2024. The next book I read is Miracles and the Unexplainable, which is Chicken Soup for the Soul. I rated this book a 9.5. I read this book every single day for like 2 months, just like 5 minutes when I would sit down and do like my daily devotionals and like spending time with God and all that fun stuff. And I love these books because they are about personal stories from people around the world that submit things that have happened to them and how God has helped them through just different things that you're like, oh my gosh. And my friends and I are doing a cry count this year. This book is like a good 87% of my cry count because I cried every single day reading this just because how amazing God is. So the whole book is just about different people in different situations having hope, and then God coming to them and like just helping them in a lot of different ways. I always say that God never fails to surprise me, because if you're like down in the dumps with your faith, which I wasn't when I read these, I have always loved reading these. I've read them since I was a little kid. I think that this is just a testimony of how great God is and how he has guardian angels around you and how he speaks to you through other people as well. The next book I read is The Thursday Murder Club. My friend gave me this for my birthday and I rated this book a 2 out of 10. I was genuinely very excited to read this because the plot line kind of gave like Murders in the Building, if you guys have ever watched that TV show. And I was just so excited, and it's being turned into a movie. And then I read it and I was like, am I stupid? Like, can I not follow the plot? Like, why is this so difficult for me to read? Before I get into the plot, just to give you guys a heads up, I thought I was very dumb because I couldn't follow it. And I was rereading chapters and pages and everything, and I was like, I don't understand. I don't know who this person is. Like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, this book is about 350 pages. I googled characters in the Thursday Murder Club book 1 because it's a series. Someone made an Excel sheet of all the characters that were in just this book. 75 characters in a 350 something page book. That means that roughly every 4 pages a new character was introduced, and it was like very like vaguely. So that took my brain for a whirlwind. The plot of the book is someone is murdered in a retirement home, and this group of 4 elderly people get together to solve the mystery. But it goes a lot to like their past and like their present, and then like their background and how it's helping them like solve this mystery. And it just felt very unrealistic because these people in the retirement home, they were in their late 70s to early 80s, and they would go on runs. You name an 82-year-old that you know that goes running for 4 miles every single day. You name me a 79-year-old that goes and hikes up to the top of the mountain with a bunch of tools and digs up a bunch of things by himself. It just felt very unrealistic. Maybe the elderly people in my life are just not in great shape. I don't know. It was very also kind of boring, and it was just very hard to follow. The next book I read, I don't have it with me because I lent it to my friend Giselle, and it is called Surrounded by Idiots. I rated the book an A. Basically, the whole gist of Surrounded by Idiots is about all the different types of personalities in the world. You're either a green, a blue, a red, or a yellow. Most people are a combination of 2 or 3, mostly 2s, and it's very rare that someone is just primarily one color. My favorite thing was I was annotating and putting down like my best friends and who fit into what, and like I told them, I was like, you're this. And so now that my friend is reading it, I'm kind of nervous but excited to see what she thinks of all the annotations. So I want to say that I'm like an 87% yellow and a 13% green. I think it was really good, and I think that if you want to know, I guess, like some of your traits and your qualities, you can identify in that. The The next book I read is Eyes Turn Skyward, and this is the second book in the Flyboy series. If you remember, I read them out of order, and I rated this book an 8.5 out of 10. This is a spin-off of one of the Flyboys, so not Josh, it's Jagger and Paisley. And they meet because she doesn't know how to swim, and he saves her life on vacation. They had never met each other, but she knows the other characters from the first book. She's currently with a boyfriend who treats her like a child because she has a heart defect that her sister also had. It's a genetic heart defect that her sister passed away from. So her boyfriend treats her like a child because he's scared, and she has this whole list of things that she wants to accomplish before she dies, and she doesn't want to get surgery, and she doesn't want to do the pacemaker. It's just a lot of risk into it. But they fall in love, and he is also dealing with a lot of family drama. And the plot twist at the end, which it really wasn't a plot twist, but what was revealed at the end was just wow. And all these characters like intersect with each other, and they continue to be in all the further books. The next book I read, and the 40th book I read, is Beyond What Is Giving, and this is the third book in the Flyboy series. I thought Josh was gonna be my number one boyfriend from all of these, and no, Grayson beat him. And I rated this book a 10 out of 10. This book is about Grayson and Sam. Grayson lives with Jagger and Josh, and Sam is best friends with Josh's girlfriend. So she has to move to their apartment for some personal issues. And Grayson, homeboy, has had a girlfriend since like childhood. Plot twist is that homegirl has been in a coma for 5 years. Afterwards, so they're falling in love, and she's very hesitant because of the girlfriend that she finds out he has. Also, like, wants to be with Sam, but doesn't know how to do it because of his girlfriend that's in a coma. He feels really guilty. Sam is also dealing with a lot of personal issues from her school that comes back and haunts her. And the plot twist at the end, you guys, had me screaming. It was so freaking good. I think the main message of this book is that when you love someone so much, you have to let them go. If you guys were really like meant to be together, like it will happen, which is so easy to say, like if you love them, let them go, and if they're yours, they'll come back to you kind of situation. But this book really puts an emphasis on that, and it was so stinking good. The next book I read is Falling for Gage, and this is Mia's latest release. She released it this year, and this is kind of like the third book in the Arker's Voice Travis series. I unfortunately rated this book a 6.5 out of 10. I was so excited about reading this book because I loved Arker's Voice and I loved Travis even more. And this one was just kind of a letdown. Gage was going on a road trip with his boys. Their car breaks down. They end up going to a bar where he meets Rory, and then she doesn't know who her father is. Her mom had passed away, so she's on the hunt for her father, ends up in Gage's small town, kind of start like falling in love, but she has a secret identity. She doesn't want people to know who she is and why she's at their small town. Honestly, I felt like the storyline was really, really, really predictable. It was also one of those books where I didn't understand how they fell in love because they barely had any real interactions. I also forgot to say that when they met at the bar, they had a one-night stand, and then after that it was like, I'm so in love kind of situation with a stranger. Also, Gage was known to be Mr. Perfect, but he kept saying, I have a past, like I have demons, blah, blah, blah. That's all he would say. It was never revealed. Like in his point of view, it is a dual point of view book. It was never revealed any of it. Like he never talked about it. He would just be like, I'm not the Mr. Perfect person everyone thinks I am. So I'm like, okay, emphasize on it. Like, why? So it was a little bit of a letdown, but it's okay. If you loved the Arker's Voice series, obviously would recommend reading it, but you're not missing out on anything if you don't. The next book I read is Live on Purpose by Sadie Robertson, and I rated this book a 9.5 out of 10. This book is supposed to be a 100-day devotional, but I read it every day for like 5 minutes when I was doing my spending time with God. I don't know how to like say that. Like, how do because I like read the Bible, I spend time with God. We're not gonna get into it. This book was so beautiful. Obviously, it's meant for you to read it within 100 days, but I just don't have the patience for that. Sadie really talks about how we live in such a world now that because of social media, we compare ourselves to other people and where they are in life to where we are. One of my favorite things that she said in there was from Stephen Furtick, where he stated that we are comparing our lives to someone's highlight reels. Everyone knows that like what you post on Instagram in your highlight reel is not really your personal life, because on social media everything can look great but you could be dying on the inside happened to me in the past. But it was just such a beautiful book about how to really trust God's purpose for you and how to understand why you're so beautifully made. And there's a lot of scripture in it. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful devotional. Definitely recommend it. The next book I read is You Are Here by David Nichols, and this is his latest release. And I rated this book an 8.5 out of 10. This book is about two recent divorcees who their friends are doing like this 10-day hike across the UK. They have never met each other, but they have a lot of mutual friends. They come together and they embark on this journey. He's trying to find himself. She's also trying to find herself. And then in the middle of the hike, their friends are like, see you later, alligator. Like, we're done with this. And they were like, bro. And it was just very charming and like a witty story. I think that it would have been better if it would have been in dual point of view instead of just one. But it was just a beautiful book. My favorite quote from the book is that sometimes you need to get lost to find your way. It was so insanely good. There's a lot of laughter and like disasters that happen to them. They're like, we shouldn't continue, like what are we doing? But just a beautiful book. The next book I read is The Reality of Everything by Rebecca Yarros, and this is the 5th book in the Flyboy series, and I rated this book an 8.5 out of 10. I'm gonna give you a little spoiler. I'm not gonna name names, but I'm gonna give you a little spoiler. Someone dies in one of the previous books. An important character dies. I believe he died in book 4. It was in book 4. He had promised her that when he came back from his trip, obviously from serving the military, they would give their relationship a try. But womp womp, change of plans. He passes away saving Josh. So Morgan is now trying to just figure out her life and what to do because she had all her hopes and dreams into this one man. And she finds out that he left her money from his will, and she moves to the Outer Banks. When she's in the Outer Banks, she meets this boy named Jackson, who she meets through his daughter, who I believe was like 5 years old. He's a single dad, and he just wants to be with her. Like, it's like love at first sight for him. Kind of for her too, but he doesn't understand why she's so closed off to him and why she keeps friend-zoning him. And then he finds out about the guy that she was supposed to be with, how he passed away. And it's a lot of kind of like back and forth of like, we need to be together, like, please, like, let's be together, and her saying I'm not ready for it, and her doing a lot of therapy because her body would just shut down from everything. This is also 2 years in the future from his death, and it's a lot of patience in navigating their relationship and her wanting to be with him but feeling like she's betraying the other guy for starting another relationship so soon after he passed away and not dealing with her emotions properly. It's a very, very beautiful book. There was also a big natural disaster that happened. He was also keeping a huge secret from her because he was afraid that if he told her that she would not want to be with him, and then when she finds out, she pushes away, and then it's just trying to figure out if she's gonna overcome her fears and everything. And great book. I think I cried a lot in this book actually. But that whole series, y'all know, obsessed. The next book I read, and the 45th book I read in 2024, is Can't Hurt Me Now by David Goggins, and I rated this book a 9 out of 10. Someone that I was friends with in college, we kind of had like a little mini college reunion a couple months back, and I was telling him how me and my friend were doing this run, but that I am not a runner and I don't know why I signed up for it. And he was like, Fio, you need to read this book. He was like, this started my like running journey. I did a half marathon because of him. He was like, I was never someone that like ran, like did extensive stuff, like it was never me, like you need to read it. So I bought the book, and this dude, holy freaking cow, the things that he has gone through in his life, it was very, very inspirational. I will say that it did get me not into like long-term running, but it helped me change my mindset and really discipline myself and be like, your mind is your biggest enemy. Your body can do basically anything you want it to. It's your mind that's stopping you. It's the fear. He was a Navy SEAL, and he grew up in a household where his father abused them and abused his mother too, like beat him. And he put a lot of photos in there, and a lot of them I had to like put a sticky note on it, and like because it was just a little warning. But he just had everything lined up against them, from where he was from to his family. Everything was lined up to go against them. And he said, if I were to follow the stereotype that like my bringing up did and like my background and everything, right now I should be in gangs, I should be doing drugs, blah blah blah. He's like, but I'm not. He really talks about how we live in such a society where we blame all the exterior things going on in the world, and that's why we're stopping ourselves. Nobody needs to believe in you other than yourself. And he went through hell and back, not only as a child, but in his adult life, in being in the Navy and being out of it, just everything that could have gone wrong in someone's life pretty much went wrong for him. And it's crazy how he overcame everything. And his main message was, you can do anything you set your mind to, but a lot of us put restrictions on ourselves, and that's why the majority of the world sticks to being mediocre, because we don't believe in ourselves enough. And he like does a lot of journal entries on like what are things that are stopping you right now, how can you fix this. Really talks about how to change your mindset and really not limit yourself. Also, I'm not gonna lie to you, homeboy, I felt like he was bullying me through the book. Like sometimes he would like write in all caps and put exclamation marks, and I was like, I need a break right now. Like, this is crazy. But it came through to me. I was telling one of my friends that when I was training for the run that we were doing, I was like, I was training and I was like, I can't do this. And then his voice was in my head screaming at me. I don't know what he sounds like, but what I imagine his voice sound like was screaming at me. And then that really got me into the discipline to do it. It was a great book. Very, very inspirational. Thank you guys so much for watching my part 3 of my book reviews of 2024. If you want to see all the books that I've read previously to this video in 2024, they're all linked down below. I also have a playlist with all the books that I read in 2022 and 2023. But thank you guys so much for watching, and see you next time.